All right, let's get started. So this is the IETF 93 Administrative Plenary. My name is Jari Ark, I'm chair of the IETF. And I would like to start by saying that I have had a wonderful week and actually also a wonderful weekend before the IETF. And that is because a lot of interesting things going on during the weekend. Lots of people coding things in various kinds of events. We had at least 4, if not more, different types of events where people were hacking away. That's great. And in particular, I like the fact that we had many newcomers in those parts of the meeting, people who had not been to the IETF before, and students and so forth. So that's great. And also, as I was coming to the meeting last week, Friday, I saw this sign, the Congress Hall and the casino, the same way. I was kind of wondering, where are my best odds? Where would I win more? And of course, the answer is that by coming here to the meeting, you win more, because if you do the things properly, then everybody can actually win when you create a market for something new, and we can all build to that. That's actually a bigger cake to divide between ourselves than otherwise. And also, I returned to this thought later during the week a couple of times when I saw a few working groups arguing about protocol A versus protocol B, and I thought, well, if you don't choose at all, then maybe the cake is very small or there's no cake, so you don't win. And in that case, maybe go to the casino instead. And the other thing that I noticed when I came to the hotel was the elevators. I went first to the first one that I used to go up to my room, and it says V6. I thought, great, finally the IAOC requirements on IETF meeting sites are getting some traction. And of course, I happily tweeted this fact on Twitter, and then 2 days later, Hilton Hotels Prague responded that no, V stands for the Czech word for elevator, and 6 is just a serial number, so that was a little bit embarrassing. But fortunately, although the IPv6 deployment in the Czech elevators has been not so good, we've seen many other good things happen in that space elsewhere. I was very happy back in my home country, where we've done a really bad job previously with V6 deployment. In just a couple of weeks, we went from 0.5% to 8% and still growing rapidly, and because of one operator and others following it, choosing to turn it on, and it's actually working very nicely. So it's good to see some of these technologies get widely deployed on the general population. So that's great. And also, every March we have a changeover in the ISG and other leadership bodies, and just wanted to say that we have not forgotten the previous ADs. They're doing very well, and it seems that their medication is starting to work. And then a fun final picture, and this relates to remote attendance and video streaming. It's important that those who are not here on site, they get to see the presentations and the presenters, and that's why we had some arrangement in the meeting rooms. And I'll just show you the picture and leave it at that. Moving on. So this is our agenda today. We are going to have a talk from Andre, from the host, and I'm going to do some reporting from myself, the IAOC, IESG Trust, the NomCom. We're going to talk a little bit about the IETF website revamp project. We have a ceremony around the Postel award, and then, of course, we'll talk about the next IETF, and then we'll have open mic where you can ask questions or make comments, and we can have a discussion. So, starting with the hosts, Andre, maybe you can come up stage. So, obviously, the IETF meetings can't succeed without us having strong support locally and strong support from the companies that participate here. So I'm very pleased to see Brocade and ZZ Nick co-host this event. It would not have been possible without you.
Doesn't this work? Oh, yeah. So good morning, everybody. As usual, I have nothing really serious to say. So I just wanted to say that we are really happy to see you here in Prague. I hope you have enjoyed the week so far and that you really enjoyed the reception on Tuesday. I see a lot of discussion. Thanks. Thank you very much. I saw in the 93 attendees mailing list that you enjoyed the final fireworks, and I saw actually the mailing list is a very good source of wisdom, and I saw. I saw the discussion about the music that was played during the fireworks, and many people very well recognized that it was the 9th Symphony of Antonín Dvořák, the Czech composer who composed actually this symphony in the United States. So that's why it's called From the New World. Actually, this symphony was first symphony or first music played on the moon, because Neil Armstrong took this music with him when he first landed on the moon. So actually, that's very important music for the whole human history. I was really thinking deeply what to tell you about about Czech Republic, and you are all frequent travelers. You travel a lot. You have been to Prague at least 3 times, right? For 3 IETF meetings and maybe for some other meetings. So I was trying to find things that I think you don't know about Czechs. So I hope the first things. We are passionate mushroom hunters, That's a very strange habit, but 1/3 of this country is covered by forest, and every September and October, I swear you will see every morning a lot of people in those forests just trying to find the favorite mushroom. Every Czech has its own so-called the place. It's a place you can find your favorite kind of mushrooms. And we not just hunt it, we also eat it, actually, surprisingly. So quite often, strange habits, and not many foreigners understand why we are doing that. Another thing is, we like walking and hiking. In this small country, there's about 40,000 kilometers of signposted footpaths. So instead of walking around the globe, you can just walk here in this small country, and during your walk you will find more than 2,000 castles and castle ruins. That's again probably one of the highest density in the world. So you can spend your whole life just exploring those castles and learning something about the medieval history of this country. On the picture you can see the second largest castle of this country. It's in Český Krumlov, on rocky high cliff on Vltava and Upper Vltava. Again, a beautiful place which I really recommend to visit. And the last thing, and that's probably something that you saw, Czechs don't smile. Especially if you go to a shop and you see a shop assistant, or if you go to a pub and there is a waiter, you think, why the hell they open a restaurant and they are not welcoming people, actually? Shouldn't they close the door and do something else? And even if you meet a regular Czech, I mean, in Prague, we are more trained to do that, but especially outside in less touristic area, nobody smiles when sees you. It doesn't mean they don't like you. We just really are very pragmatic people, and we just don't waste or mimic just because we meet somebody. It's really waste of our energy. We don't smile when I meet a colleague in my office, because I meet him every day, so there's nothing funny on that. That doesn't mean we do not smile, actually. We smile a lot with our friends, and we are really passionate joke tellers. We really love jokes, although I don't think he would understand completely the Czech humor. It's very black, actually. So all the jokes we do, and we do a lot of jokes, would be probably illegal or at least very immoral in our country. So don't ask me to tell any of them. It's really just a horrible humor, very black. It's the way we deal with every tragedy where something really bad happens, and I mean really bad. The worse it is, and the more jokes we have about it. So that's how we live, actually. And also the humor is very specific, is very self-deprecating, because the best jokes are about us. And again, it's very hard to understand. But just one illustration, just one example. When there was a national contest called The Greatest Czech, so people were asked to nominate the best person in our history. And I'm sure if you think from your local country that you would think of some noblemen, some scientists, sportsmen, everybody would probably nominate something like that, some president, whatever. While Czechs, spontaneously, no one coordinated action, the most nominated person was actually a person who never lived. It's imaginary person that was created in a movie and in a theater play. So they had to stop actually the contest and change the rules because that didn't work that very well. And that said something about us. We don't take anything very seriously. We always try to sort of think whether the rule is realistic and if we really need to follow that. Jára Zimmerman, it's a very special person. He was genius who invented almost everything you can think of, including internet actually. But unfortunately, there was always some occasion, some problem that somebody, for example, invented something 5 minutes before him, or there was always some reason why his invention was forgotten. But he inspired a lot of other geniuses. For example, he crashed his small planes into the Marconi's laboratory, where Marconi was trying to work on signaling through the wires. And Marconi was of course very upset, so Jára Zimmerman replied, Marconi, please try without wires. And that's how the radio transmission actually came out. And also when Mr. Chekhov was writing his book, and that time it was what called Two Sisters, Jára Zimmerman just replied, is it enough? So that's how many great things, were invented. So this is the greatest Czech from the history, and I understand you not all can understand this humor, but that's that's very specific local knowledge. Maybe last thing, again, don't be afraid that Czechs don't smile. They like you, really. When another Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV came to Czech throne, was again one of the most powerful person in 14th century. He ordered to grow grapes in Bohemia, and when first time they created a wine and gave him a glass of wine, he tasted and said, "Oh, it's ugly. I cannot drink it. It's just horrible." And after a few minutes, he started to drink again and again, and he said, "Actually, that's not a bad wine. It's actually interesting. I like it." And then he drank the whole bottle at the end of the day. And a friend, sitting next to him said, "Well, and that's like the people here. They taste a little bit bitter at the first sight, but when you grew with them, when you know them better, they are very sweet and very nice." So again, that's the story of the Czech Republic. I'm very happy on behalf of Brocade and CZNIC that we can host you. And because this is my last opportunity to tell you something, I will tell just Nashledanou, which means to see you again. We would really love to see you again in this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And can we get Benson Schleiser from Brocade up here as well? And really, thank you. I mean, we can't have these meetings without support of the host and the sponsors. Hopefully we will see you again here in Prague. Seems like has become kind of our European Minneapolis in some sense. We come here often. So we are going to hand the plaque for these two companies and gentlemen in appreciation of them hosting us here. Thank you. Yeah, the fireworks, that was great. I also wanted to highlight that we have plenty of other sponsors in this meeting. Dial Telecom for the connectivity, Cisco DevNet for the hackathon, and then A10, Procade, Assessnet, Comcast, Ziznik again, Huawei twice actually, Nephelion, NetDef, OPNFV, and Ride, who have been the Bits and Bytes sponsors. Thank you. And now we go through the chair's report. I'm going to talk about the participants, give a couple updates, provide some recognition, one bit of sad news or things to remember. We'll talk about appeals and finish with talking about the hackathon. And there's, by the way, as always, there's more reports online. We're not reporting everything here. Just go look it up from the website. The participants, a very good meeting, I think. The numbers that I got yesterday, 1,358 people on site, 204 newcomers, 65 countries, and I'm trying to remember if this is the record. Does anyone? Ray is nodding. It's the record. Okay, that's great. And a couple of IESG updates. Just quickly, we can talk about these more during the open mic if you have comments or questions. Just wanted to note that the IESG restructuring that we started some months ago, or almost a year ago, is complete. So now we have 7 areas, and we have tailored the number of ADs to the workload. And this has been done mostly for the flexibility and matching of resources to the workload. And hopefully the IESG can handle its own organization now in much better fashion. Of course, the real work happens where you all are doing the work in the working groups, and that's the important thing. We're also looking at ways to sort of make our organization even further community-oriented and make sure that we don't have a lot of management overhead, and trying to see if the ADs could move some of their tasks to the community and the working groups. And it's kind of difficult because the AD tasks are divided into many small pieces, and there aren't really major pieces to move around so easily. But we are thinking about some potential experiments in the space of code review, document review. So we'll see that later. The other thing that we have been talking about at the IESG is the RFC format, and if you go to the IAB plenaries, you may have heard that the RFC formats are changing. Heather, where are you? She's there. And my interpretation of that is that finally we can have blinking keywords in RFCs. Is that right, Heather? She's shaking her head. No, not really. That's not the point. But it's actually really useful things like people being able to write their names properly or have a picture that is actually understandable and highlights something that's interesting for the topic. I'm not talking about this here because of talking about the formats per se. They are the task of the IAB, IAOC, and RFC editor, and the tooling around that. But we at the IETF obviously also want to use these formats, not just about publishing RFCs. How do the RFCs get there? Well, you have to submit IDs, you have to go through the IETF process, you have to go through IESG. And we talked about this, how to go about it, and it's kind of a little bit unwieldy because there are some things to think about, what versions get reviewed by who, and what kinds of new things to check, and what possible issues there might crop up. And we decided in the IESG that we'll do a small step at a time approach to this. So we'll start small and then work our way towards more complicated things. And the first step is publishing a document with some non-ASCII text, author names as an example. We have some potential candidates for that. We're going to go through that. I don't think we need tooling changes for that on the IETF side. Eventually, we'll need some tooling changes for the ID submission, I think, when this goes more broadly, when it gets more broadly applied or adopted. Things like submitting the XML and then having the other versions or formats generated from that. So that's that. Look forward to some steps in the next month or 2 or 3 on that, hopefully. Scheduling. We had an interesting scheduling problem for this meeting. We have been always growing the number of scheduling requests, and it's more and more difficult to schedule the meeting properly, particularly given all kinds of constraints that you guys keep telling us about in the working groups. And we exceeded the available time this time. We were able to cut it down a little bit, and then therefore we fit into this meeting. That's great. Thank you. And this is not a negative thing by any means. It's a good thing that work is happening. You feel you need the meetings. The working groups are active, and not just in the meetings, but on list. And you're holding virtual interim meetings and such. So it's not just this meeting that you would wake up every 4 months and do something. That's not the intention, and that's not what I see happening. So it's all good. But we do have to figure out how to fit everything into this week. I don't think we should lengthen the week. It's already long enough, and it's been actually lengthened a little bit given all the coding things, for instance, and various leadership events, and occasionally some workshops. We could talk about shorter time allocations per working group in meetings. We could always use our time smarter, no status updates, just talk about real issues. We could have more interim meetings, so much of the work happens outside, between the IETF meetings proper, and then we meet physically 3 times a year for further high bandwidth interaction, but that's not the only thing. So I already said that we should not do longer weeks. I also personally think we should not refuse work. Well, we should of course refuse work if it's a bad idea, right? But we should not refuse work that's a good idea on the grounds that, sorry, the IETF is full. Although I'm sure there might be other opinions on that. Perhaps we could discuss that. The other thing about the schedule is that this week's plenary arrangement, having the plenaries on the mornings, was an experiment. We'd like to get some feedback on that, and I can already see some changes. One of the reasons why we did this was that it's easier to change the room during the lunch break because it needs to be in a different format. So we can use the same space for working group meetings and we don't waste actual time because it's the lunch thing that's in between. Anyway, whatever the feedback is, we'd like to hear it. We are, however, considering something else for the next IETF meeting in Yokohama, which is the ISG and IAB seem to be agreeing that we can have a joint plenary that will be shorter than the 2 ones together. We're talking about 2.5, or if we split it somehow with a break, we could be maybe 3 hours. I don't know. That would still give us time to do a short, maybe slightly shorter technical topic than we normally do at the IAB plenaries, less status updates, and maybe a little bit less time for the open mic, but still an opportunity for people to raise issues when they have them. So that's what we're thinking. Again, would love to hear feedback. Just want to recognize a few people. The IESG note takers, which is I don't know, maybe a thankless task. You're there and listening to our discussion every week, and sometimes a lengthy discussion. I particularly wanted to recognize the fact that sometimes we have retreats, or every year we have one retreat, and a lot of the times the note takers travel to these meetings, so that means like a week-long travel, and, expense of various sorts, and taking away time that you could use for doing other things in your day job and so forth. So I want to recognize Sue Harris and Huawei for making that commitment this time in May. Thank you. I also went around the working group chairs list and asked for some examples of good things that have happened recently, and got a couple of examples. Obviously, this is a small set of examples. There's a lot, tons of truly great things happening at the IETF. Just wanted to highlight a few ones. Several people commented that Helen Chen had made very nice and clear presentations on Yang models in the routing working group. Thank you for that. Thomas Watain has been organizing earlier unofficial ones and now even official interop events in the 6th TISH working group. And of course, we all care about that running code and getting things to work and interop. So that's great. So it's not just you produce the documents, you as a working group chair, you drive the whole thing forward and make sure that the industry is building these event things and making sure that they actually work. And finally, Dan Romaskanu for helping others succeed in many, many different ways. As an example, he's chairing 3 BOFs at this IETF. Thank you, Dan. And one final thing, which I actually forgot to put on the slide, that the EDU team is doing a lot of work on Sundays and over the net, providing information about newcomers, providing information about interesting topics to the whole population interested from the IETF. And that's a lot of unpaid work that is very, very interesting from the point of view of the people who are looking at this. I'd like to recognize their work and also note that we do need new volunteers in that space now and then. Now would be a good time. I also wanted to announce that we're redoing that a little bit, maybe move at least parts of it more toward over the net, short videos, rather than someone talking in front of the room at an IETF meeting, given that the way that our participation is changing and so on. So thank you all. And then I have some sad things to say, or sad moment perhaps, to remember James M. Polk, who we lost in May. He's been a long-time IETF contributor. One of the things, as I was talking to people this week, I realized that I did not know this personally, but he had been one of the people behind the T-shirt in Adelaide IETF. Many of you remember that shirt. I certainly remember that shirt. One of the many, many things that he's done. So I wanted to have a short moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. You are in our minds. I need to report appeals a little bit. So just before the previous IETF, we had gotten an appeal from JFC Morphine around the INA plan working group efforts, and we had provided a response from the IESG just after the previous IETF, and subsequently there was an appeal also to the IAB on this same topic. And the IAB has processed that and provided their response, which was discussed in the Tuesday plenary. Okay, and then I was going to talk a little bit about the hackathon. Actually, I could also invite Rick Twoniak from Cisco come up stage, and he's going to speak a little bit more about that. So my observation of this whole thing is that we had this great weekend, and I mean, of course, there's also hacking in other parts of the week, hopefully. We had several events. The hackathon was one of them, the biggest one, but we also had the code sprint, which is for the tools that we use at the IETF for ourselves. We had the ETSI plug test, that's the one that was related to the working group results from 6TiSH, and I think a few other working groups as well. And we had the Cryptech project working on their security designs. We had, I heard, several other projects here who were meeting and doing things together. So I'd say altogether 140, 150 people. We're working on their code during the weekend, and even more importantly, we had those newcomers, many newcomers in the hackathon in particular. We also connected with folks from Open Daylight, Riot, OP, and FE, and many other projects. So it's not just individuals coming here, but actually engagement with some of these important projects around the world and open source. So I think that's a great result. And furthermore, I've seen several working groups talking about the results of the hackathon this week. So it seems it's also useful for the document part of the IETF's work. And now I'm going to ask Rick to speak just a little bit. So Cisco has been the sponsor of the hackathon this year, and he's going to speak briefly about why they're doing this and why it's important. And then we'll see a video of the current hackathon and then talk about the future. Rick.
Thanks, Yari. Appreciate that. So I run the developer program for Cisco, which is a brand new program we started at the beginning of 2014. And it's a true developer program, and the importance of this program is as Cisco transitions to a software company, it's important to bring together a community of developers that will develop on our platform. So we spend a lot of time educating developers, providing tools that will make them more productive, getting them introduced to open source projects like Open Daylight. And these are the things that we try to do to bring a community around traditional networking professionals and sort of software coders, traditional software coders. And that's what DevNet is all about, bringing those communities together. Now, if you talk about the hackathon that we did, so the hackathon is a cultural event where you sort of bring all this together, right? You bring the people together into a room, you use the platforms that you've educated them on, and you get them to develop things and to innovate on top of those platforms. So it's a very important cultural event for us. And that's why we get involved in these types of things. We do a lot of hackathons, but I think there's great synergy with the IETF in doing these hackathons because we bring in some of these new software coders. We had a bunch of newcomers here from ODL that were hacking on ODL with the traditional networking people that always come to the IETF. And it actually put a smile on my face coming to Czechoslovakia here and seeing all this come together in this hackathon. So what I'd like to do with you now is share with you a video of what this hackathon was all about to encourage you to participate in the next hackathon that we have coming up in Yokohama.
I'm Charles Eckel here at the IETF Hackathon, and just wanted to tell you a little bit about the hackathon. Well, the IETF, it's always been about rough consensus and running code, and I think the problem that I was seeing, and others too, is that perhaps there's been a little bit too much emphasis on the rough consensus and not enough time spent on the running code part. So what we're really trying to do with the hackathon is bring that back into balance, I would say, and to, in doing so, help the IETF stay relevant, really, with the pace of industry. So what we're seeing here is that in the IETF, we develop standards, and it takes a while for those standards to get defined, and then you get people going off and implementing them. But generally those tend to be vendor-specific proprietary implementations. You plug them together, and they don't necessarily work well together. They're non-interoperable, and that's because there were perhaps some bugs in the spec, some ambiguities, people interpreted them differently and did different things. So we really are trying to, with the hackathon, get into the habit of implementing the code right in parallel with the spec. So you do some implementation here, that gets fed into the spec, you fix bugs that you find. There's a quick cycle that we go through, with the idea being that in the end, you end up with a better quality spec that gets defined quicker, and you have an open source implementation that people can use as a reference or just actually use in their own products and solutions. And we're really seeing a lot of excitement around there. We're seeing great participation at the hackathon. We had 50 people in Dallas. We had 120 sign up here in Prague, and more than that actually attended. And it's really neat to see that mix and kind of new ideas coming in and the learning that happens with that, where we bring people from different working groups or even different, the open source community, the standards community, put them together in a room, get them to start working together, and good stuff comes out of it. So to me, that's one of the most exciting things that's happening here.
So we have our next hackathon coming up over in Yokohama, so we really encourage to get more participation. We had 135 to 150 people participate in this last one, which grew from 50 people from the first one, so we're hoping for even bigger things at the next one in Yokohama. We already have our first entrant into the hackathon, the Secretary General from the IETU. So he's already signed up and ready to participate. So we've got one, but we expect a lot more. And I do want to say, so we're going to be sponsoring the first 3 hackathons. But what's very important is, as this is going to be a common thing now as the IETF goes on, and we're going to encourage other companies to come in and sponsor these hackathons. Because when we talk about building a developer community and developers who are out there, they typically don't just develop on one particular platform, Cisco, et cetera. But having more companies participate will help us build this community together. So I really encourage other companies to sort of jump in and say, hey, we want to sponsor the next set of hackathons. But I look forward to seeing you all in Yokohama, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. And indeed, the IETF is searching for potential new sponsors for the hackathon series for 2016 and beyond. So with that, I think it's time for Ray and Tobias to come up and speak about the IAOC.
So good morning. My name is Tobias Gondrom, speaking as the IAOC chair. Actually, it's quite amazing to see so many of you here in the morning. So I was really pleased this morning when I came in. I was a little bit worried. Oh, admin plenary in the morning. If I would have to choose between another hour of sleep and coming to the admin plenary. So I really appreciate you being here, and I think that's quite important for our community. Anyway, I'll make it short. So this is going to be a fairly short and quick presentation. Just a few updates. So this is our acronyms, which you probably already know. For the beginning, there has been a small organizational update for the IAOC. In April, our previous chair, Chris Griffith, resigned, and we had to elect a new chair and also find a new member. And we are very happy to have Leslie Daigle joining the IAOC, has been appointed by the NomCom. And she will complete Chris's term and plus 2 years of the new term, because that would have been up this year. And I was elected as IAOC chair. As my previous speakers already mentioned, this is great to come here, and we had also from an operational perspective, a very successful meeting. Not the least thanks to our great sponsors, who gave a nice, also we had a very nice social event, and one of the things I took away is that beer glasses in Czech Republic are a little bit smaller than in Germany. But you know, it's not the size, it's the content that matters, okay? So with that, a big cheers and thanks to our sponsors and hosts for this meeting. Thank you very much. So we had 1,300 attendees, which was very nice from a budget perspective, because we are like roughly about 100 over our forecast. So finances look good. Looking backwards at the Dallas meeting that we had before, again, here we were a little bit above our forecast. Actually, Ray is excellent doing forecasts. So he's always spot on, and sometimes he just exceeds his own expectations, which is great. Registration revenues is above. Sponsorships were slightly above, but Bits and Bytes was a little bit below. Overall, the bottom line net was quite good, and so we are doing fine from a financial perspective. One of the things I normally have the honor of announcing here is new meeting venues or sponsors and hosts. Unfortunately, at this time, we didn't manage to finish the final bits of the contracting. So we are that close to being able to announce, but that close is still not there yet. As you know, with an RFC, you may be that close to releasing, but it's not an RFC yet. So I have to ask you for your patience, and but we should be able to announce very, very soon. Just as a quick reminder, as you've already seen, we will have our next meeting in Yokohama, which I'm already looking forward to this. And the White project is kindly the host. And after that, we will have our first meeting in Buenos Aires in Latin America, which is quite exciting. And we do a lot of preparations work together with the ISOC to grow this community there. Then we come back to Europe and Seoul and Montreal. And currently we're working on 99 and 100 to allow us to make the announcement for that. Some quick project news. We had completed, since my last report, the data tracker facelift and the RFC digital objects identifier. We are currently, the website revamps for IETF and RFC editor are currently underway. And our IMAP access to IETF email archives is undergoing testing this month. Actually, personally, I'm looking forward to this because this might really make my access to the mailing list a little bit easier than just kind of archiving everything into a pipe. We have an RFP open for software developers for IETF IDIG contract until it's filled. So I hope we get some submissions for that. And we have a second contracting update, the RFC Production Center. The contract will expire on December 31st this year, and the RFP has been issued on June. And proposals are due until August 3rd. So if you are thinking about making a proposal, you still have time for that. Another few days, and the award will be expected for October. And with that, I hand over to Ray.
Thanks, Tobias. I work with AMS and the venues and doing the contracts, and we don't have anything to announce right now. As Tobias said, we're in Auth 48. We do have a lot of people. These things don't happen by themselves, and the code sprint, we had 15 people working in the code sprint on Saturday. And these folks are cranking out tools and enhancements to tools which you are using. So if you'd like to participate on that, talk to Robert Sparks or Henrik, and we always have a call for folks to come in. And this is a Saturday thing, so change your flight reservations for Yokohama to come in, let's say Thursday, Friday, and participate in the code sprint. NOC, we have another group of 15 folks who worked in the NOC this time and had some challenges earlier in the week, but knocked those out, took care of those, and things have been very good since then. And thanks to Jim Martin and his team, a whole host of folks. You'll note that there are folks from WIDE who participated in the NOC and have been for the last few IETFs, because in Yokohama, WIDE will be running the NOC, and Veriland won't be there, but they do intend to be there in Buenos Aires. There's an awful lot that can be said, a tremendous amount that can be said about the work that Brocade and CZNIC put into hosting this meeting, and clearly a highlight of this was the social on Tuesday evening. It was a tremendous event, and we thank you for all the effort that went into that and all the support for the meeting. Circuits that were mentioned, Dial Telecom. We're fortunate at virtually every meeting to have circuits donated to us. In this case, I think we have one 10 gig and one gig circuit for the meeting. And as been mentioned, Bits and Bytes. We have a lot of sponsors for that this evening, and there'll be about 10 or so presentation tables available. Starts at 7:15. Make sure you're here. As usual, free food and drink, but make sure you do go around to the tables and see what folks are presenting. And a lot of thanks to Cisco DevNet for sponsoring the hackathon. They came to us with this idea, and when they said, let's do this, and they were thinking about doing it first in Prague, and folks at AMS and us said, gee whiz, maybe we can get the logistics together to do it in Dallas. And so we kind of rushed things a little bit to get it done, but we still had 50 people there. And you can see what happened here, and we're expecting about 200 folks in Yokohama. Don't forget at lunchtime, we'll have a Thursday Tech Talk. From Brocade, Dave Meyer will speak on recent advances in machine learning and their application to networking in the Grand Hilton Ballroom. Starts at 12. And I think there's some grab-and-go lunch possibilities for that as well. So please join Dave for that event. And thank you all, and we'll see you in Yokohama. And if I can get to the, where can I find my little, yeah. So if you missed the social, or as a reminder for what you may have seen, a stunning end to the evening. Thank you very much.
Benson?
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. This is the legal part here, so I'm doing my part. Thank you. So welcome. This is, of course, everybody's favorite administrative topic to report on, and it's my first time, so let's have fun. So just a quick refresher for those of you who don't know about the trust or don't know enough about it. It is a legal entity that exists to own intellectual property and other property on behalf of the IETF. Typically that means things like copyrights in RFCs and so on. There's a bunch of other information. I'm not going to read you the fine print, but if you want to know more, please go to that website. Since the last IETF, you can see on the screen here the trustees. Since the last IETF meeting with Leslie Daigle coming on board, she is also a trustee of the IETF Trust as well as an IAOC member. So thank you, Leslie, wherever you may be. One bit of update following on to Tobias's comment. So with Tobias taking over as chair of the IAOC, thank you, he stepped down from the position of trust chair, and I was elected in his place. So
Thank you.
thank you. You're welcome. This is probably everyone's favorite slide to look at. It's the list of all the legal requests that the Secretariat has to deal with. These are things like subpoenas, or in some cases, these are patent reviews, that sort of thing. And typically what's involved here is authentication, which means verifying that in fact the document is the document and that it was published at a particular date, and all the sort of inane things that come up in legal proceedings. I don't need to go through these in detail unless there are questions, and if there are, I probably can't answer them anyway. But I should note that there are a couple cases here that Scott Bradner is the IAOC Legal Committee Chair. He's made us aware that he has a potential conflict of interest, and he's been recused. He recused himself. So there should be no issues there. But thank you, Scott. There is, I know if you've been to the plenaries before, you've probably seen this in recent times, that there is an ongoing lawsuit in which the IETF is named. I'm not going to go into any of the details here. The attorneys that have been involved from ISOC and from the IETF have advised the management, as broadly interpreted, of the IETF not to engage in dialogue on this. So don't ask any questions, I suppose. There are some new documents posted. We just received late last week and early this week. They're on the webpage. You can see the link there on the IAOC website. Feel free to read those if you can't sleep. So many of you probably know there was some discussion on the mailing list of this, of course, that the TLP, the Trust Legal Provisions, has been updated. That's the policy by which the trust operates, if you will. It includes things like the boilerplate and licensing. Of course, the update is a fairly small one. It's just to allow the use of templates so that if you were to include template text in your draft and RFC, people can make copies of it and adapt it as you would a template. So this has been completely approved by the trust. It's now active, and we're on TLP version 5. Again, an exciting document to read, so I encourage you to check it out. And then one last update. So the trust, as I said in the first or second slide, the trust exists for the purpose of holding IPR on behalf of the IETF and for the advancement of the internet and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of words that describe that. But in that spirit, we agreed at the request of some outside groups, we agreed that we are willing to hold IPR related to the IANA. And that, for example, would include something like the IANA trademark, the IANA.org domain name, perhaps other things. But that has been voted on through an e-vote by the trust and then confirmed during an actual meeting for the sake of all the legalities that are involved in making sure it's official. And we have made this statement. Now, we do not currently hold any IANA IPR. We are simply stating our willingness to do so. There is some discussion going on with ICANN and with the RIRs and the stakeholders in that community. And if they should ultimately ask us to do so, we are willing. But that's the status of it at this point in time. And with that, good time for questions or wait? All right.
Thank you. Harald.
Thank you. And it's nice to be up here again after a few years, this time with a new role as NomCom chair. This is the NomCom 2015. This is the list of members of NomCom 2015. Thank you all for serving. We had our first meeting ever face-to-face on Tuesday morning, and by convening, we also ended the term of the 2014 NomCom. And I want you to give you thanks for your service. It is now finished. I bet you all are very happy. So it consists of 10 people. All of them are wearing little orange dots on their badges and orange buttons on their shirts, if they remember them. And the voting members, those who are listed to the left, those are those who actually make the decisions on who to pick as IETF leaders, have a long yellow ribbon attached to the badge, unless it's fallen off, of course. So could the NomCom members that are present please stand up now? This includes the liaisons. So if you see these people in the hallway and have a strong opinion about who should lead the IETF for the next few years, talk to them. If you have a weak opinion, talk to them too. Because we have to make a decision. And if we have the information, we can make a good decision. If we don't have the information, well, who knows? Thank you. What we are doing is to replace this list of members of the ISG: Alyssa, Barry, Brian, Benoit, Alia, Carrie, Kathleen, and Martin. Replace or return. Two of them, Brian and Martin, have already informed the NomCom that they do, if they are nominated for their position, they do not intend to accept that nomination. In other words, they intend to quit. And for the IAB, we are replacing Mary, Joe, Ted, Eric, Brian, and Mark. We don't have any information about the intentions of those people. Thanks to the brilliant efforts of the previous NomCom in appointing Leslie for a 2-year plus term, we don't have to pick an IAOC member. So this is what we are going to do. We hope to have the right people picked before everyone goes off on holiday for Christmas or whatever season that is. Usually people take off, no matter what the religion. And in order to get that done, we have to stick to this schedule, which means that by the end of August, there should be a call for nominations out. By October 8th, all the names that you want us to consider need to be in the pool. If we don't like the pool, we might reach out and arm twist someone to say, we really want you. To get to talk to all these people at Yokohama, we need to have some formalities completed before that. And then, after Yokohama, we have a discussion. And if history is any rule, more discussion. But we expect and hope that we have completed the selection process by December 17. So the rules say that we have to be finished by February 3rd. So this gives us a few days of margin, according to the process. We hope we can do it. And by Buenos Aires, I hope to be standing at the podium saying, hey, we're finished. That's all. Thank you.
Joe, can you come up for the IETF website revamp report?
Hi. So the IAOC commissioned a revamp of the IETF.org website, selected a vendor to do the work, and then asked me to be the project manager over the effort to ensure that we had somebody from the community that was participating, since we've got an outside vendor that is that's doing the work. So this is just for www.ietf.org. This is not for tools. This is not for data tracker. It's not for RFC editor. It's not for IAB.org, et cetera, et cetera. It is possible that some of the things that we learned from doing this work could be reused later in some of those other sites, but that's out of scope for this project with this vendor at this time. One of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we can use the site from your mobile devices and have it work adequately. And we're using a bunch of research that we're doing, talking to folks in the community to try and figure out how people use the website, what their most frequent paths through it are, trying to think about people from outside the community who are coming in, trying to learn about us, et cetera. One thing that's important is because of some of the sensitivities of our user base, we've set the explicit understanding with our vendor that everything has to work if you have all of the plugins, all the JavaScript, everything turned off in your browser, and you're just rendering static HTML. And we're hoping that that allows everybody to continue to use the site in the ways that they have in the past. So as I said, the IAOC let an SOW, did RFPs, selected Torchbox, which is a design firm based in London, to do the work. We've got a community review committee that is providing insight and oversight of their work and have been performing audience research up to this point. We are now at the stage of doing some initial design reviews, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. So this is sort of the start of the process of trying to get all of the work that we've done, figuring out who the audience is, how they're going to use the site, into actual HTML that we'll be able to use. And as you can see, this has sort of a different look and feel than the current website, with the intent being that we're setting the initial impression that folks have when they start to learn about the IETF to something that is a little bit more up to date than the last time we did the website. These are just some other examples of the current thoughts in the design. And as you can see, there's some information down at the bottom of the page in the footer that will lead you on to other places to learn more. They've done some thinking about ways that this will be usable on smaller phones. As you can see here, you can adapt from a larger screen down to a smaller screen and still use the information. They're working with the tools team to get access to data tracker, the APIs that are available there, so that we can do things like detecting RFC numbers in line, popping up information about them, and providing links so that as we're doing sort of descriptive text about our work, we can lead people into the actual engineering work and get them involved and interested. So we're continuing to refine the information architecture, the accessibility work, et cetera. And then the next steps are trying to figure out how we get this into production, how we hand it over to the folks who will be running it in practice, the mechanics of getting it on the servers, but also figuring out how we continue to upgrade content as we go, working with folks from the EDU team, et cetera, as well as Secretariat and IESG, IAB, et cetera, to get content flowing into the site so it stays relevant. And obviously there's going to be a bunch of testing in parallel before we roll the thing out. So the community will have quite a bit of opportunity to comment and have their voices heard. So finally, there's a representative from Torchbox. Jed Barker is here. He'll be outside in the lobby showing off the demo in slightly more live fashion than you've seen in these static screenshots. If you have particular feedback, things that bother you, et cetera, I've primed him that our community has strong opinions about a variety of things, and if he listens carefully, he'll learn stuff. So please be gentle. He's not from our community, but it's an opportunity for us to help him understand us a little bit better. And that's all.
Okay, so if we can have Kathy and Olaf come up here and we'll discuss the Postel Award.
Good morning, everyone. Today is that special day that we as a community remember the person and the legacy of John Postel with the presentation of the Jonathan B. Postel Service Award. This morning, really at the suggestion of the selection committee, we have a short video for you that we hope really brings the spirit of John and this award into the room. So this is thanks.
A long time ago, in a network far, far away, a great adventure took place. Out of the chaos of new ideas for communication, the experiments, the tentative designs, and the crucible of testing, there emerged a cornucopia of networks. Beginning with the ARPANET, an endless stream of networks evolved and ultimately were interlinked to become the Internet. Someone had to keep track of all the protocols, the identifiers, networks, and addresses, and ultimately the names of all the things in the networked universe. And someone had to keep track of all the information that erupted with volcanic force from the intensity of the debates and discussions and endless invention that continued unabated for 30 years. That someone was Jonathan B. Postel, our Internet assigned numbers authority, friend, engineer, confidant, leader, icon, and one of the first of the giants to depart from our midst. He had been our rock, the foundation on which our every web search and email was built, always there to mediate the random dispute, to remind us when our documentation did not do justice to its subject, to make difficult decisions with apparent ease, and to consult when careful consideration was needed. He left a monumental legacy for all internauts to contemplate. Steadfast service for decades, moving when others seemed paralyzed, always finding the right course in a complex minefield of technical and sometimes political obstacles. When we needed to keep track of all the hosts and protocol identifiers, John volunteered to be the numbers czar, and later the IANA, once the Internet was in place. John was a founding member of the Internet Architecture Board and served continuously from its founding to the present. He was the first individual member of the Internet Society. I know, because he and Steve Wolf raced to see who could fill out the application forms and make payment first, and John won. He served as a trustee of the Internet Society. He was the custodian of the .us domain, a founder of the Los Netos Internet Service, and by the way, he managed the Network and Research Division of the USC Information Sciences Institute. John inspired loyalty and steadfast devotion among his friends and his colleagues. For me, he personified the words selfless service. For nearly 30 years, John served us all, taking little in return, indeed sometimes receiving abuse when he should have received our deepest appreciation. John left a legacy of edited documents that tell our collective internet story, including not only the technical, but also the poetic and whimsical as well. He contemplated the incorporation of a successor to his service as IANA and left a lasting legacy of service to the community in that role. His memory is rich and vibrant and will not fade from our collective consciousness. As the chairman of the Internet Society at the time of his death, I pledged to establish an award in John's name to recognize long-standing service to the community, the Jonathan B. Postel Award. It was awarded to John posthumously as his first recipient in 1998 and has been awarded every year since. If John were here, I am sure he would urge us not to mourn his passing, but to celebrate his life and his contributions. He would remind us that there is still much work to be done and that we now have the responsibility and opportunity to do our part. His record stands as a measure of one man's astonishing contribution to a community he knew and loved.
You, of course, will recognize the voice of Vince Cerf. He recorded this just this weekend. He wrote this piece, however, quite a while ago. But we thought this remembrance was one that we wanted to bring back to the community and hold it close as we award this amazing John Postel Service Award this year. Olaf Kalkman is going to do the honors for the Internet Society, and we have a very special presentation.
Thank you. Colleagues, I asked if I could play a role in this year's ceremony. I have done so because the awardee is what I imagine John Postel has been. A man with a vision about the internet who inspired others through competence, common sense, and a strong personality. The awardee is a man who has been an important mentor throughout my career in the internet, and I'm proud and I'm happy that it is possible to pay him respect publicly by handing him the Postel Service Award. In a moment, I will read the official award text, after which a short video will be shown. And since the video is easier to be seen from there than from here, the awardee will enter the stage after the video has been shown. Now, without further ado, for his pioneering work, 25 years of ripe leadership, and for enabling countless others to spread the internet across Europe and beyond, the Jonathan B. Postel Service Award 2015 has been awarded to Rob Blokzijl.
Rob Blokzijl made many contributions to the internet in Europe and worldwide. We will just highlight 3 areas here. Rob's origins are in high-energy physics. While he worked at the High Energy Physics Institute in Amsterdam and at CERN in Geneva, Rob helped building the computer networks that became essential for this branch of science. As Brian Carpenter says it,
what Rob did, in my view, was to infuse the early networking scene in Europe with the spirit of pragmatic collaboration that was so strong in high-energy physics. When people started to take positions of principle, Rob would always bring the conversation back to practical aspects of resource sharing. If that meant being undiplomatic, Rob was always ready to be undiplomatic in the nicest possible way.
As commercial internet providers entered the scene, Rob realized very early on that vendor-neutral exchange points are crucial to provide stable and economical traffic exchange. He convinced his employer, the Dutch Institute for High Energy Physics, to rent out space in a then underused computer room on an equal access basis. There were many takers, and the Amsterdam Internet Exchange, AM6, was born. But Rob is mostly known and recognized for the contributions he made as chairman of RIPE, the European Forum for Internet Coordination. Rob has served as the chairman of RIPE for 25 years, from the very beginnings until last year. He led RIPE through 68 meetings in those 25 years, starting with just a handful of people in 1989 to now more than 500 attendees who meet twice a year. He made sure that minimal time is spent on organization and formalism and maximum time on meeting productivity. The very long coffee breaks of the early meetings are legendary, as are the social events today. Rob also played a vital role in the establishment of the RIPE NCC, the Secretariat of RIPE, and the first regional internet registry. Rob also helped to spread the idea of such registries to other regions. When controversies arise, Rob helps the people concerned to solve them. Rob's custodianship of RIPE is very similar to the work and style of John Postel in helping others to achieve their goals. And this is how Jeff Houston puts it.
Rob always manages to say what we all feel, and he says it using half the words. And he says it in a way that has twice the impact than if anyone else were to say it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Bloxile.
Congratulations. Thank you. Rob, hereby the Postel Service Award with the inscription that I just read. I cannot find the slide back, but again it says, for his pioneering work, 25 years of RIPE leadership, and for enabling countless others to spread the internet in Europe, across Europe and beyond. Rob. Let's do the small photo things. Yes. We need to do a few photo things as it goes. Thank you.
Rob, would you like to say a couple of words?
In the first place, I would like to thank the Internet Society and the Awards Committee for this great honor. I am deeply touched by it, and this morning, when I was looking forward to this ceremony, I thought, oh my God, I have so many things to tell, but luckily other people have taken care of that to a great extent. And I think the video also gave some of the things I would have mentioned. However, there are still a couple of things I would like to mention. 35 years ago, I was happily working as a nuclear physicist in the institute shown on the screen a few moments ago. When one day my director came back from a meeting at CERN and called me to his office and said, Rob, I have seen something absolutely fantastic. My colleague from a large nuclear physics laboratory, the Rutherford Laboratory in the United Kingdom, he is sitting at CERN behind a terminal and is working on his computer in England. I don't know how this works, but I want that too. I said, you want to work on a computer in England? No! When I'm at CERN, I want to work on the computer of the Institute in Amsterdam. Go and fix that. I had no clue what he was talking about. So I organized myself a trip to CERN, where I met people like Brian Carpenter, present here, and got educated in computer networking. A little while later, we had a small group of people organizing and computer networking for high-energy physicists in Europe with some links to the United States. And I ended up in chairing one of these networking committees for physicists. And I learned a management tool from a dear friend from Italy, friend and colleague Enzo Valente, who explained to me, Rob, the way we work in these committees and communities, it is democratic dictatorship. We listen to everybody, and when we have heard everybody's opinion, somebody should decide what to do. So, democratic part is clear, and the dictatorship is clear, otherwise nothing will ever happen. I think that, for me personally, it was an extremely valuable lesson, which I try to apply in all my various roles in the growing networking community. Another tool which I learned is a tool from the IETF. It's called humming. I don't think any other community outside the IETF has any idea what it means. Even some of the participants who are new to the IETF still have to do their homework and do some humming in the bathroom or so. Like many tools, there is one element missing, humming over the internet in a fashion like we could do a hum here right now, has yet to be defined and implemented. But what I have used the concept of humming, the concept basically of expressing consensus in my 25 years of chairmanship of RIPE was very easy in the beginning when the whole community in Europe, networking community involved in internet style of technology, consisted of 14 people or so. It became a more important tool like today, when we have now roughly 600 participants in meetings which we have twice a year. Participants are coming from our own area, which covers 75 countries, plus growing interest from outside our area. I think for the last 2 or 3 years, the largest group of people on a geographical basis is usually from the host country, and the second place for many years already is the United States, a well-known country, European country, west of Ireland, I sometimes define it. But reaching consensus on policy proposals in that community, I must say we have learned a lot from the IETF. We use tools that are proven to work. Last but not least, in the last 10 years or so, we are all network engineers. Some of us even grew up in the time of open system interconnect theoretical models, 7 layers of networking, and from the wire as the first layer till the application on the 7th layer, and there it stopped because we were engineers. And the 2 layers on top of that we never discuss, or hardly discussed ever. Layer 8 is money, We are engineers, we are not interested in money. Somebody else should build this stuff who has the money. And layer 9 is religion and politics, and that has become extremely time-consuming and sometimes even important in the last couple of years. And I must say, I personally support and admire the role that the Internet Society plays there. The Internet Society has created a lot of trust and importance in discussing these items. There is a whole circuit, some people say a circus out there, where these things are discussed, ranging from human rights on the internet till who controls the internet, and this is governments talking, so you better take them serious. And if you want to have your opinion listened to, you have to participate in that whole circuit, and the occasional participation in a meeting is not enough. And I know that the Internet Society is playing an extremely important role there, which I think is something that not everybody always realizes. The Internet Society is more than just a legal umbrella for the IETF, which is also an extremely important role, but things like education in certain parts of the world where the Internet Society plays a role are equally important, and as I said, the religious and political aspects should not be underestimated, and whatever we the community can do to support the Internet Society there, we should do. I think I could go on for many hours, but I won't do that. I would like to conclude by once again thanking my physics institute who put me on the road of networking. The last 15 years of my employment there, I hardly spent any time on physics anymore, but more than full time on networking. I would like to thank them for that trust. I would like to thank the larger physics community where I learned about networking. I would like to thank my internet community in Europe, the RIPE community and the RIPE NCC, acting as a secretariat in a fantastic way. And that also helps to build trust in the higher layers 8 and 9. And last but not least, thank you again, Internet Society, for awarding me with this, which I personally regard as a very important and high decoration. Thank you.
I think that a collective hum is better than a collective applause. So,
Okay, thank you. And next up, we'll talk briefly about IETF 94. Akira, can you come up?
Good morning. This is Akira Kato from White Project and Keio University. I'm going to talk a little bit about Yokohama IETF. Oops. So the Yokohama IETF will be held in the Pacifico Yokohama, which is exactly the same venue in the last IETF meetings in Yokohama. And some of you already still remember the shape of the hotel, but this is the venue, okay? So Yokohama is probably, as you know, the big city and next to Tokyo and part of the big metropolitan Tokyo area. And you may be able to access the downtown Tokyo by 30 or 60-minute train ride. And so important thing is you should not use rent-a-car because Japanese roads are very congested and train system are very convenient. The essential portion of Japan has not been changed, but many significant improvement has been changed over 13 years. So the Haneda Airport is the nearest international airport. While the flight is, number of the flight is limited, you may want to choose flight to Haneda. And Narita Airport is still accessible, and Narita Express has been improved, and including commercial Wi-Fi services, and the power is available to all seats so that you can work during the 90-minute travel. Okay. And one of our sponsors are going to operate SIM card token vendors in Narita Airport. That will be very interested, many of you. Okay. And also Minatomirai subway station is nearby, very conveniently accessible. Okay. And the week of the early November is not only IETF. In the previous week, the W3C Tea Park will be held in Sapporo. And if you are big seafood lovers, then it's a must to go. And a lot of the related meetings like IMC or LIME, the OpenStack Summit, and RAID will be held in the previous week and the same week of IETF. So prior to that the contents of the local host webpage is still being populated, but prior to book your flight, please check this URL. Thank you very much, and see you soon in Yokohama.
Thank you, and I certainly personally look very much forward to that as well. So, unless I have forgotten something, I think the next item is for the IAOC and the Trust to come on stage, and we'll have open mic.
I think we do introduction first. I learned this the last time the wrong way because I started with questions and then somebody told me you should do introductions. So do you mind if we start on that side with introductions?
Leslie Daigle.
Scott Bradner.
Kathy Brown.
Ray Pelletier, IETF Administrative Director.
Tobias Gonum, IAOC Chair.
Jari Akko, IETF Chair.
Benson Schlieser, IAOC member, IETF Trust Chair.
Lou Berger, Finance Chair. Andrew Sullivan, late.
Fortunately, not always, so that's fine. To open this panel, any questions towards the IAOC? Please raise your voice now, or towards the Trust, of course.
Hi, Hi, Bob Hinden. Not a question, actually. So since no one else did it, so this is actually a very important anniversary. About 10 years, a little over 10 years ago, the IETF created the the IASA. So basically our I'll call it our experiment in self-governing. And you know, the BCP 101 was published, the IAOC was created, we hired Ray as the IAD, and off we went. And I think it's worked out remarkably well. And it's especially interesting given all of the other discussions in the larger community about bottoms-up, you know, multi-stakeholder governance. We are actually doing it, and we've been doing it for 10 years. And I think, you know, I think lose sight of sometimes about how well we're doing this. So I think we should all be very congratulate ourselves in really putting the effort into making all of this work. So thank you, all of us.
I'm counting one, I'm counting two. Yeah, ooh.
Brian Carpenter, this is really for the Trust. And it was put into my mind again by the update on the website revamp. We've noticed, we being the edu team that I'm a member of, that there's a certain amount of material on the website which is sort of community maintained, like RFCs are, but is on the website. And we had the feeling that there might be an issue there because it's not covered by the trust legal provisions, as far as I know, and yet it has characteristics of material that is covered by the trust legal provisions, like, you know, do we allow translation of that material? Does change control actually belong to the IETF as a community, and so on? So I would just put it on your list of things to think about when there are no subpoenas or law cases to deal with, whether the TLP should be extended to at least some of the materials on the website.
Brian, this discussion was held in the Trust about this relative to the Tau a while back, and we got some legal advice on it that George thought that it was properly covered, but it wouldn't hurt for the Trust to say something. And we have not yet said something, so maybe we should.
I'm Charles Perkins. I have another question for the IETF Trust, or actually the legal. Are we having more lawsuits and more requests for things, or is it about the same, or is there anything to be concerned about?
It's not significantly different. It comes and goes. Some of them take a while to do, so they're sitting around. The Gatsby suit is taking quite a while. But it's episodic, and it's just a part of the tenors of the times of lawsuits.
Thank you.
Nothing terribly to worry about. It's not something that occupies a great deal of time. It's mostly done by the Secretariat, along with a lawyer.
Other questions? I see nobody, so with that I think we can close this panel and hand over to the IESG, I believe.
That's right. Great. Now the IESG should come on stage so we can deal with, you know, a big line of questions, perhaps. More space here. Okay, so why don't we do an introduction round? Spencer, can you start?
Spencer Dawkins, Transport Area Director.
Deborah Brungard, routing area.
Ben Campbell, Art Area.
Martin Stiemerling, Transport Area.
Kathleen Moriarty, Security Area.
Joel Yegley, Operations and Management.
Benoit Claes, Operations and Management.
Barry Lieba, Art.
Jari Ark.
Alyssa Cooper, Applications Real Time.
Stephen Farrell, Security.
Brian Haberman, Internet.
Here, Andrew Sullivan, the IAB Chair.
Terry Manderson, Internet Area.
Alvaro Retana, Routing.
Aaliyah Atlas, Routing.
Okay, the mics are open.
Dan Ramascanu. I would like to refer to the proposal of the experiment of 2.5 hours plenary. So, in my opinion, it's not a good idea. And the reason being, I don't know what happened in this session. So we had a 2 hours technical plenary on Tuesday, and actually there was no time for open mic, which I found quite unusual. And now we are almost 2 hours in the admin plenary, so I'm adding 4. And I don't believe that we had 1 minute wasted in none of the 2 events. And open mic is a very important part of our culture and way of doing business. And I prefer to have an early lunch or early dinner sometime, but actually leave time for the open mic. I hope that what happened in the technical plenary will not be repeated.
Well, I certainly agree that we must have time for open mic. That's very, very important. So my thought was that we could probably compress some of this, that much of the reporting could actually be completely online, and we'd only have the actual topics and a few ceremonies. It is maybe a tight squeeze for 2.5 hours, but as I said, we're expecting some feedback on this and be happy to listen to it.
Wes George, Jari, if I could just respond to that specific comment, you could compress this a lot by eliminating a number of the videos.
Yeah, we have video compression. We're good at that. Andrew.
On the topic of the cut mic on Tuesday, I will point out that I made a choice because nobody wanted to get up. If people had wanted to get up, I certainly would have canceled other things. So if there are important things to talk about, I made a solicitation on the lists the other day as well, and I haven't heard anything. But we are extremely anxious to respond to people if there are questions or such like to be put to us. The IAB doesn't want to hide in a corner or anything like that. So if you have such things, if there is time today, the IAB is here, and we could potentially be marched up here if that's what we need to do, assuming that this plenary answers all of the questions first, because we're not going to encroach on somebody else's time. Or we'll find another way to respond to you this week.
If you're on the same topic, please go.
So I just wanted to suggest that, Aaron Falk, Akamai. I wanted to suggest that perhaps we could combine some of the awards and celebration activities with the reception, since that's both an event that's very well attended, maybe well attended, better attended than this. Keep this as a little more of a business meeting. If people don't feel like that's a good use of their time, it's certainly not taking away from working group time.
I like that idea, and of course the awards and such, that varies from IETF to IETF, so we don't always have them. We do have host talks, for instance, but perhaps that could be part of the reception. I think that's a great idea. Anyone else want to comment anything here?
Philhan Baker. Perhaps you could have a plenary business meeting and a non-plenary business meeting and do most of the reporting in the non-plenary. In that, if you think about it, if you're going to report figures to 1,000 people, I mean, like, what's the point unless they're going to comment? And there are a lot of things that I'm not going to stand up in front of 1,000 people and start to kibitz on. If, on the other hand, those are being presented in a non-plenary setting where the only people there are people who are actually interested, then I'm much more likely to come up and actually raise points on them. So I think in terms of the reporting pieces, it might actually be worthwhile having just that part done as a normal working group meeting that isn't plenary in a smaller group who are focused on that stuff and not waste everybody else's time with stuff.
Thank you. I'll just note that we've had, I can't recall if we had this time, but we've had IAOC sessions where people could go into more deeper into the numbers on a Sunday afternoon, and as you noticed, we can't really do much here either. Barry, did you want to continue something on that?
Yeah, I wanted to point out that we've really cut back on the reporting of figures, and you probably noticed there's only one slide with the breakdown of how many people are here, and one brief slide on how we met the numbers. And all of the charts we used to have with a lot of figures on them are gone. I question about the non-plenary part. For the people who are interested, if there are conflicting sessions with real working groups, they can't come if they're interested. So.
All right. So, Robert Sparks with a topic change. I'd like to comment briefly on the combination of Ryan apps, the new R area. The apps area working group meeting on Monday, I consider a very strong meeting and a positive sign towards the success of that combination. I've noticed at this meeting an increase in cross-participation from what had traditionally been the two different areas, with an uptick in actual participation, not just lurkers. I would encourage the rest of the ISG to consider this a model. Think about it as other ways that things could be reasonably rolled together or reshaped, but don't be afraid of the restructuring effort. The pain was much lower than I thought it would be. And I would ask the art ADs to work really hard to go ahead and remove the vestiges of the old areas. Right, there's a conversation about, do we have two different area working groups inside the area? No, please don't. Let's just go ahead and be art. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments, and I'd like to hear further comments in the future as we mature.
And thank you, Robert, for your help and your feedback in getting it all set up, and everyone else. I think that really, doing a couple of revisions on it has helped it have a smooth start.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Robert, being on the tools team, was one of the people that was looking at the most impact of this, because we were screwing areas together and things like that. So if he was pleasantly surprised at how much less bad it was than what he thought, I think that's a really good sign.
Okay, more questions, comments? Well, we don't have to sit here if there's no discussion. So going once, twice. Okay, we're done. Thank you.